Hash Rate is sponsored by Ledger. With the announcement of Ledger Flex and Ledger Stacks, Ledger gives you the best security on the planet for your crypto and identity. Ledger Flex and Stacks drive an e-ink screen with the same secure chip that's in your credit card and passport, except instead of protecting the secrets of banks and governments, Ledger protects your secrets and your private keys. Ledger supports Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and more than 200 other tokens. The secure touchscreen, plus the Ledger Live app, means that whether you're buying your very first Bitcoin or doing your 2000 swap, you can do it securely and easily with your Ledger. And as always, use my link, shop.ledger.com/hashrate in the show notes to get the very best price whenever you buy a Ledger Flex or Stacks. And BAMP.FI's NUSD. NUSD is the Bitcoin dollar. Now you can hold dollars directly in your Bitcoin wallet on the Bitcoin chain. Swap between native Bitcoin and NUSD using just a Bitcoin wallet. No bridges, wrap coins, or centralized exchanges required. On the BAMP.FI website, you can swap NUSD with Tether and Athena's USDE, so there are easy ways in and out for you Ethereum people. NUSD is already supported by major Bitcoin DeFi protocols like DotSwap, and more added every day. Go to BAMP.FI to start your NUSD journey today. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hash Rate. My name is Mark Jeffrey. Today is the Fractal Show, or as I call it, the Fractal Fractacular. And with me is my good friend, Mr. Danny Plainview. Hello, dude. How you doing?
Hello. Doing well, man. Doing well. Glad to be back.
Yeah, no, I mean, you were just here like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
When I thought about doing this Fractal Show, you have your own project called Opnet, which is going to be launching on Fractal. And as part of that experience, when I thought about doing this Fractal Show, I was like, well, you know this inside and out, the Fractal part of this whole thing, because you've been dealing directly with it down to its raw pixels. And you've been dealing with all the other projects and, things associated with Fractal. So who better to get on the Fractacular is what I thought. So first of all, a lot of my audience, comes from Ethereum, or they're not even in crypto. What is Fractal? Tell us what that is. Let's just start at the beginning.
Yeah, so Fractal is a merge mined fork of Bitcoin. And what that means is a lot of Bitcoin forks, like Litecoin or Dogecoin, they fork the Bitcoin code base and then they add their own things to it. So they add like a different hashing algorithm or a different type of address format. Fractal is unique in the sense that it is directly a fork of Bitcoin down to the hashing algorithm and the address types. And it's, to my knowledge, the first fork of Bitcoin that includes the Taproot upgrade from the get-go. So it essentially works where it doesn't use Bitcoin as the token. It is a separate blockchain from the Bitcoin blockchain. But Bitcoin miners, because they use the same hashing algorithm, SHA-256, they can turn on their Bitcoin miners and point them to the Fractal chain as well to mine both Bitcoin and Fractal like in unison, essentially.
Okay, so let me just stop you there. So the purpose of building Fractal, why would you do this? It's not the same as Dogecoin or Litecoin where they forked Bitcoin into their own separate universe. The purpose of Fractal is to create a viable, faster layer 2 for Bitcoin, which hews very closely to the Bitcoin ideals by not changing the code much. They do change it a little bit. We'll talk about how in a few minutes. But the idea is to make it much more scalable and much faster. Is that correct?
Yeah, essentially, like there's so much fighting over the block space on Bitcoin Layer 1. There's only 4 megabyte blocks. They're 10 minutes minimum in length. A lot of the times it's longer than 10 minutes. And then also you can only really have 6,000 to 8,000 transactions max per Bitcoin block. And that's if everybody is using a Taproot address, which most people aren't. And so Fractal essentially seems to be created specifically for like a Bitcoin playground. A lot of the people who are involved in building it come from like the BSV side of things. And, BSV, I think the concept of it is very cool. Obviously, the founder is over there a little crazy. And
the founder, Craig Wright.
Yeah, I think they airdrop their token. It's kind of silly because they airdrop their token to basically a bunch of people who just wanted to dump it. So that's really, there's no chance for it to resurge when you have like holders like that. So Fractal is very refreshing in the sense that Unisat, they're the ones making Fractal. I believe they hired like a firm to kind of work with them on it. But they're, some of the deepest players involved in like the Bitcoin side of building on top of it, this meta protocol, BRC20's ordinal world. And so I really see that they have basically taken the almost 2 years of games being played on L1 and have made this fork that is, it's not really new technology. Like merge mining's been around for a long time. Opcat's built into Bitcoin originally itself. But they've really created this like perfect mix of existing tech with a refreshing narrative that will serve like what people are doing on Bitcoin very, very well right now.
Yeah, so let's talk about Unisat for a second, because some people may not know who that is. So on the Bitcoin blockchain about a year and a half ago, BRC20s were launched. And I think it was like February or March of 23, something like that. And it was the first time that there were tokens directly on the Bitcoin blockchain. I won't get into how that happened or like how it works, but just know that, we discovered, we didn't know this until early 23, that you could even have tokens on the Bitcoin blockchain without changing the core of Bitcoin itself. Somebody just figured out that this capability was always there, just unused. And so along came Unisat and put a really nice front end on that capability that emulated things that we'd seen in the past, like Uniswap. Not exactly. It was a little crunchier than
more like OpenSea,
yeah, more like OpenSea. So, but they made it so you could trade realistically. You could trade tokens. And Ordi, the very first BRC20, went from like 0 up to I think it was like 1.5 billion at its peak, right, in value. So it was like number 50 or 40 in the top 100 tokens by market cap. So they proved the point that they could do it. And then all these other BRC20s arose. And then it sort of died down. Like it sort of grew to what it was going to grow to, and then no more. So my view of this is that Unisat kind of looked at that and went, well, why? And the reason was because, there were too many limitations to Bitcoin. The block space wasn't big enough. The transactions took 10 minutes. So it wasn't scalable. It wasn't fast. And so they said, well, how can we fix this while retaining the core Bitcoin ethos? And so that was the impetus behind Fractal. Yes?
That's a fantastic recap, sir. Yeah. And so like basically BRC20 tokens were built on top of this concept of ordinals, right? Where the ordinal client also is not really new technology. It's just a perfect mix of existing technology where there's information in the Bitcoin blocks from transactions. And if you put arbitrary data, JSON files, JPEGs, etc., off chain, you can kind of conjure up an API that like basically allows for ownership of these types of data on Bitcoin through this like SAT tracking system, right? And so Unisat did like a hell of a job at creating this system where you're basically trading NFTs. Like BRC20 tokens are inherently non-fungible tokens, where you have a unit of 100 tokens, and then just like you would list an NFT on OpenSea, you have to list that chunk of 100 tokens for $50 each or something like that. And at first, like the first couple of weeks of BRC20 felt very clunky. People were not really catching on. Like you said, it started from 0. And Unisat did the greatest job of building infrastructure to make that market feel like a tangible, I have tokens in my wallet and they display the right way. And when I trade them, it doesn't feel super weird. And so I kind of see them doing the same thing with this L2 narrative. Because, as we've seen over the past year, a lot of Bitcoin, probably 50 to 100 Bitcoin L2s have kind of popped up, whether they launched or not. There's been a ton of them. Like Merlin Chain is really one of the bigger ones when I think of L2s, Bitcoin L2s. But they, in my opinion, really, the existing L2s really dropped the ball on making it. Most of them aren't really tied to Bitcoin at all. Like the term L2 is very loosely used to describe all of these different like layers on top of Bitcoin. Some of them just use like wrapped Bitcoin as gas, and then it's just its own EVM. But pretty much every single one of these Bitcoin L2s they forked an EVM base. So you would have to go from your Unisat or your Xverse wallet and then bridge into their L2. Then even if you're using wrapped Bitcoin as the gas token, it's doing it from a MetaMask or a Phantom wallet, where that to me doesn't feel like an L2. Like, to me, the L2 experience is I go to my dApp. I don't want to use the main chain. I either click on my wallet or I click on the website and I change my network to the one that I want to use. And boom, all of a sudden I'm in this new network. My address type stays exactly the same. Maybe I have to bridge I still have to bridge my tokens from the L1 to the L2. But overall, the experience is just a click of the button and boom, I'm on faster, cheaper Bitcoin.
It's the same tech. It's not fundamentally different. It's not like a completely different universe. Exactly, you're still in the Marvel universe, right? Even though you're in a different timeline of the Marvel universe, you still have Spider-Man and the Hulk and, recognizable things, right? It's not like you go to the DC universe, which is like Ethereum.
No, it's a totally different thing.
Batman, So, and the technology is completely different, and you're dealing with wrapped coins. So Fractal, because it's a copy of the Bitcoin chain, it also is proof of work. So you don't, if you are a fan of the proof of work ethos and you want that security of the main Bitcoin chain, you like Fractal, whereas these other proof of stake things, as Lynn Alden points out in her very excellent book, Broken Money, all proof of stake chains are subject to the whims of a cabal of validators who run it. And they can they can wake up one morning and decide to completely change the chain, take your coins from you. There's nothing that really prevents them from doing this other than an agreement between them that they'll slash each other if one of them does it. But if they all wanted to collude, they could. In a proof of work network, you cannot do that. It is impossible. The sort of, especially Bitcoin, the math and the sheer, basically all the consumption of electricity and the hashing and the fact that Bitcoin is Earth's largest supercomputer by several orders of magnitude right now prevent you from breaking that. Math stands in your way. There's no humans.
However, along with that, like the things that come with current proof of work chains is they're all competing over different hashing algorithms, essentially. So like, the Bitcoin miners can't mine Bitcoin Cash as well, or mine, Dogecoin or BSV or Litecoin, all of these different chains, while they are still proof of work, it's kind of like not very efficient because you're essentially all of the proof of work miners that mine, the 100+ different proof of work chains, if they were all merge mined, then they could all be mined by the same hashing power, and all of that hashing power could kind of be going to one place that secures all these multitudes of different chains. And so Unisat has taken like a really cool stance where if they didn't do a merge mined proof of work chain, then they would be essentially putting a brand new competitor to Bitcoin's insane hash power. And there's a very, very unlikely chance that you're going to ever surpass or even get like a majority of that Bitcoin hashing power to point to your new chain. So by being merge mined, they are allowing solo miners to just mine the Fractal chain. We actually have a mining pool ourselves that we're in the process of setting up. We've been mining on the Fractal testnet so far, and it's been very easy to set up because it's essentially the same thing as a Bitcoin miner. And so a lot of these mining pools out there. We've actually even seen this with Bell's Coin recently. I know there's been a lot of hype over Bell's Coin. Bell's Coin isn't merge mined by Bitcoin, but I believe it's merge mined by Dogecoin now. And so they're essentially becoming more of a secure and usable network now that hash rate of Dogecoin can go into the Bell's chain instead of competing, like being on their own. There's only one mining pool that really has been mining Bell's.
Let me stop you for just a second because I think maybe merge mining, we lost some people. So that's fine. I want to cover all these topics, so all good. So when Bitcoin was a little baby network in 2009, if you had a large amount of compute power, like you're the NSA or somebody, it'd be very easy for you to set up a mining pool that just, was like, come here, boy, and just, took over the entire network, and you could just rewrite everything because you had more than 51% of the mining power, right?
That's why Satoshi mined the first, I believe, year of Bitcoin on his own before putting the white paper out. Yeah.
Yes. So, but now it's grown. Now it went from a little baby chain to a very enormous chain that no nation state could even attack it at this point. No. So, now if you're doing Fractal, and that's also proof of work, and it's a little baby chain again, theoretically, without merge mining, you could do the same thing to it. So right now
100%.
you could attack it. However, that's not the case, because what they do is they chain their proof of work chain to Bitcoin, and they basically interact with the mining that's going on there to secure their own mining in a technique known as merge mining, which I want you to explain exactly what that is. But the idea is they're drafting off the big giant truck of Bitcoin in front of them and sucking, basically using that proof of work to secure the little tiny chain so it can't be attacked. So tell us exactly how merge mining works.
Yeah, so when people in the ETH world think of L2 or rollup or any of these other layers, there tends to be some level of like chain interaction, right? Where the L2 chain is posting a proof to the L1 chain. There's some kind of connection between the two blockchains themselves. When it comes to Fractal and just the concept of merge mining in general, it's not actually the blockchains. There's no proofs of the Fractal chain being posted to the Bitcoin blockchain or anything like that. It's literally the case of all of the Bitcoin hash rate could also, while mining Bitcoin, mine the Fractal token and the Fractal chain, and essentially get the rewards from mining Fractal blocks, especially early on. That's very attractive. It's going to be high rates. I believe it's 25 Fractal Bitcoin per block for the first 6 months to 2 years, something like that. So yeah, basically these Bitcoin miners, without having to buy any additional hardware or really spend any more amount of money on mining, they can mine additional chains as well as Bitcoin, which again, this is not a new concept. I believe Namecoin did this back in like 2013.
Yes.
It's been around for a long time. Yeah, there just wasn't really, again, Unisat is just master of the like user experience and crafting a narrative for what the space seems to want. They've been very liquid in moving with that so far. And so this is just positioned perfectly to like bring back this old idea of merge mining, but bring it into a market that's kind of suffering from the like congestion of Bitcoin blocks itself, where not only are they incentivizing the miners to point the hash rate at Bitcoin, but also the faster blocks and cheaper fees on Fractal is very attractive to, if you're a daily runes trader or a daily ordinal trader, you can have your same, again, because it's, I know we'll talk about this a little bit later, but because it is a fork of Bitcoin, bridging from the main Bitcoin chain to Fractal will be much easier than trying to bridge from Bitcoin to Merlin chain, where it was just one private key central custodial wallet.
Right, and bridges are the root of all evil, as we have learned about a billion times, right? So,
yeah.
Especially in the Ethereum world. So,
yeah.
Well, let's talk just for a second. So, Unisat, are they backed by Binance? Binance is a funder of Fractal in some way, but do you know what that relationship is?
Yeah, so Unisat did a round of funding last year. I don't remember the exact number. I think it was $50 million. I don't know if that was what they raised at a valuation of or the amount they raised at, but that number's been around. And it was like OKX invested. I'm sure a lot of private investors or angels invested. And then recently, Binance just led a $20 million round investing into Unisat, which is assumed to be investing into Fractal. I believe that Unisat ran the Fractal raise.
Yep.
And so, yeah, Unisat is like very, very involved. Again, there was, from what we see, there was a firm that was hired to build the Fractal chain itself. I believe it's the same firm that built Babylon. That's what their Twitter and website say. And so it's not like the Unisat team internally is responsible for Fractal. There are outside investors as well. But Unisat is leading the charge. It's in their wallet. Obviously, they have the branding, they have the mind share, and they're also like the master, the gigabrains behind the idea of Fractal. They wrote the white paper and proposed everything, put it all together. So it's not exactly like Unisat chain. It is a fair blockchain where anybody can mine it. There's no restriction on only Unisat or their friends can mine it. That's not the case at all. But they are the ones who kind of put it all together.
Yeah, anybody can join the mining pool. It's exactly like Bitcoin. It's totally permissionless mining, as proven by the fact that you and yours over at Opnet are actually mining Fractal on the testnet right now.
Yes.
So you said so super cool. That was really cool, by the way, when I saw you guys do that. And we're gonna talk a little bit about Opnet and what you're doing also in the context of Fractal. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about. Well, actually, first of all, before we get there, this is all coming out of China. right? This is a Chinese project. Okay, I just want to verify that. That was my understanding. Even though Binance is not necessarily Chinese, they're operating out of. We don't really know. Is it Dubai?
Yeah, it's up in the air, something like that. Yeah.
So we don't really know, but yeah, it's not in China.
Yeah.
So and is there and also Fractal will support runes as well as BRC20s. I think we've ascertained that now for sure, right?
Well, Fractal will support anything that Bitcoin supports. That's why, again, Opnet is able to be deployed onto Fractal as well, because literally any, BRC 100, even like TAP protocol or CBRC20, all these different ideas, all could be very, very easily deployed from Bitcoin L1 onto the Fractal L2 as well. Again, because inherently, even down to the address type, everything is exactly the same. So it's very nice from a builder's perspective, to be honest.
No, it's not exactly the same because the block times are 30 seconds, right? So they have tweaked the code a little bit, and they've also enabled opcat, which is not enabled on the main Bitcoin blockchain. It's basically a command which opens up the possibility of Turing complete smart contracts directly on Bitcoin. Now, that does not opcat it's not turned on the main chain, but it is turned on Fractal. So there are differences, right?
Yes. So opcat itself is very interesting. There's two main camps and a bonus third camp of what I would call like the schizo group, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the BSV really, really deeply believing this stuff crowd. They have unlimited blocks, so it's a little bit different for them. But opcat has two main camps right now, where there's people talking about opcat for L1 stuff, and there's people talking about opcat for L2 stuff. Now when I say L1 and L2, again, there's really got to be a revamp of these terms at some point because it's too muddy with the Bitcoin stuff. Fractal being an L2 is not meaning that opcat is different on the main Fractal chain itself. So like there's CatVM, right? CatVM is the Quantum Cats and Udi, Taproot Wizards, all those guys. They are kind of doing the push for opcat because they want to build essentially, again, L2 is maybe not the right term for it in hindsight, maybe in a year from now, but I'll call it an L2 for now. That works very similarly to something like the Lightning Network, where they're pushing for opcat so they can have their own network off-chain, and people can very easily, near trustlessly, bridge in and out of that L2. And essentially, just to explain what opcat does, it concatenates things. So the way that Bitcoin opcodes work is right now, if I have the values A, B, C, D, I have to store those as 4 separate values. So A, B, C, and D are 4 different things. Opcat allows you to just take those 4 things and put them into one value. So now you have the value of A, B, C, and D instead of being A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, so it's all in one mailbox. You've concatenated it into one place. So
way better way than I could have summarized it.
You have herded the cats. You've concatenated, right? So
yes. Yeah. So for things like layer 2s, that is very useful specifically for posting proofs of things that happen off chain. So right now you can't really like combine all those values into one thing. Again, I'm not an L2 programmer, so I'm not very specifically familiar why that is so totally different. But I do know that opcat really does allow for better L2s on Bitcoin. And L2s that use this wrapped Bitcoin as the gas token off chain. When it comes to the L1 stuff, and this means L1 of both Fractal as a blockchain and Bitcoin as a blockchain. Like Fractal as an L2 is not CatVM. It's totally separate. You could do CatVM on top of Fractal and build an L2, but the L2 still has like layer 1 properties because it's its own blockchain. So opcat on the L1 allows for you on its own. It allows for you to emulate or simulate Turing complete language or machine. So Bitcoin technically already has smart contracts on chain. It has since day one. They're just very dumb smart contracts. Script and TapScript. So script is like the main game of the language, and then TapScript is kind of like a DLC where like if you use Taproot or you use a nested SegWit, then you can interact with the TapScript stuff as well. But legacy addresses don't really work.
Yeah, it's pretty dopey though. And so, so theoretically, flipping Opcat on enables Turing complete, which means you can do fucking anything, pretty much is all that means. Anything that's in your brain, anything that's been done on Ethereum, you can now do it on Bitcoin or on Fractal now, not on Bitcoin proper.
Well, it creates Turing complete simulation. So there's actually a handful of opcodes that were removed by Satoshi when Satoshi removed the Opcat opcode. Yeah. And a couple of those were like division and multiplication and some of these more basic, math functions that Bitcoin right now only has add, subtract, and very basic things. So Opcat allows you to like loop a subtraction or an addition opcode into a way that, again, emulates these other Turing complete functions. But for it to be like truly Turing, like Opcat on BSV has all of the opcodes enabled, which allows them to say this is a Turing complete function of Bitcoin because it has all of the other Turing complete functions as well. But Opcat without division and multiplication and things like this, it has to figure out ways to simulate these other functions that it's lacking that would make it a true Turing complete language. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically, it's sort of like programming an assembly language. So it's you can do it.
Like making a PC in Minecraft. That's how I think about it,
Yeah, you could make anything in it. It'd be extremely hard because you're sort of assembling, it's kind of like doing chemistry by assembling all the molecules and atoms by hand.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of mixing chemicals, right? You're messing around down at the atomic structure. So it's very unlike a high level language like, I don't know, Python or something where, everything's made easy for you. So you're just snapping together these prefabricated Lego bricks to get the functionality you desire, which is sort of analogous to what Ethereum and, some of these other high level language blockchains have done. Yeah. So, it's an order of magnitude or probably several orders of magnitude more difficult to make what I call an Opcat app. Now, yes. I've looked around, right? So I've looked into this Opcat thing. I agree that it is possible to make apps. However, at this time, looking at BSV and some of these other chains where Opcat is enabled, I have not been able to find any Opcat apps at all, let alone ones that emulate things that I've seen on Ethereum, like Uniswap and Aave and the normal DeFi stack things that we've seen. I'm told that those things are coming on Fractal, but I've yet to see one yet. Have you seen any of these things yet? What is the state of the art as far as you know?
I haven't personally seen any like live apps on their testnet that use Opcat. I do know there are a few in the works. I'm assuming that the Fractal or Pizza Swap is going to. I know they have a version of Pizza Swap that uses Sats as the gas token. That's like their off-chain BRC20 swap. I would assume that the on-chain version will be based on using some kind of Opcat code for sure. And granted, their testnet with Opcat's only been live for 10 days, like 10 days
so
today.
Early, so super early.
It's very
sort
early,
of unfair to criticize too much.
Yes, and I have a feeling myself. I have no confirmation of this, but I hope that they do this. I really think that they will enable the other opcodes as well. The Fractal team tends to give like notes on updates on things every now and then. They have a Notion website where you can read through whatever the latest update is internally. It's public info, and they recently talked about enabling other opcodes as well. So my guess is going to be that, again, enabling Opcat on Bitcoin on Bitcoin L1 is really only going to be useful for the L2s like Cat VM that build on top of that, like especially with the restrictions of the time limit and the block size of Bitcoin. It's going to be hard for any Opcat enabled app alone to be on Bitcoin. But if
let's be honest, like getting that approved on the Bitcoin blockchain, like the main one, that's like dealing with the Vatican, right? They're like, we will consider your proposal and we will have several convocations. It'll be years before.
I'm 50-50 on it happening anytime soon, but even if it does happen, it'll be used for L2 things, basically better versions of Lightning Network is how I would think about it. Like it's not exactly what it will be, but that's what I think about it. Versus on Fractal, again, Fractal has this really, really cool narrative that they're building, which is like it's faster and it's more, malleable Bitcoin. And so if they enable the other opcodes as well, then I think like some amount of OpCat L1 apps will really actually like be able to kind of, exist. And there will be some, I know they're working with the script guys, which the script guys are on BSV who have made, all of the OpCat and OPDiv and all these applications like that. And so I would guess that team is going to want the rest of the opcodes there as well.
Yeah, I would think so as well. I know Francis Dunn, and I'm not speaking out of turn here. He has admitted to me on Twitter publicly, not like privately, that he is working on an OpCat app. Yeah. So because he see me bring this up a lot, and he's like, I'm doing one, but he won't tell me any more than that. But I love Francis. We love Francis. So I look forward. I'm very curious as to what he's up to. But he's clearly bullish on the fact that you can do it. Now that said, Fractal gives you basically very fast, very scalable Bitcoin, but it's really hard. However you're doing it with OpCat, it's a lot harder than on Ethereum, orders of magnitude harder. You have built something called Opnet, which will launch on the Bitcoin main chain, but also on Fractal. You are a Fractal app on top of Fractal, which enables people to simply port existing Ethereum smart contracts onto Opnet. So it's sort of like a Ethereum emulator in a way on top of OpCat and Fractal. So tell us a little bit about that. I know we've done a show on it, but give us sort of the overview in this show as well.
Yeah. So Opnet is a blockchain meta protocol that is specifically intended to bring smart contracts to like dumb blockchains, essentially. So the same concept, it's the exact same technical stack as something like the Ordinal client or the BRC20 client or Runes, where you have on-chain information and then off-chain you're using an indexer to just process that information and show it to the user. And so like Opnet is not a layer 2. It's not people say L1.5. I have no clue what that means, but it's the same level of L1.
I know why they say that, though. It makes sense to me, actually. But go ahead. Keep going.
It's the same level as if you're going to call Ordinals or BRC20 like an L1 meta protocol, which I would personally, Opnet is the same level. And so the same way that, Ordinals and Runes and even BRC20s have been like redone to be on Bitcoin forks as well. Like there's Doginals, there's Litecoin Ordinals, all sorts of stuff. Opnet is the same concept where anything that's on Bitcoin that is using, the Opnet meta protocol for people to play around with, you can also have the Opnet indexer point additionally to like Fractal or even Bells or in theory even Litecoin and these SegWit chains you can also use. But the Taproot chains are like fine and dandy. It took us 1 hour to get the indexer that we have on the Bitcoin testnet we forked that and changed, the configurations, and it looks at Fractal now, and boom, it just worked immediately. So that's why a big reason why I personally am so excited about this narrative that Fractal is starting of this Bitcoin fork as the L2 style, where it really feels like, the ETH experience of using Arbitrum or Binance Smart Chain, something like that. With Opnet, you can, have Opnet Bitcoin, Opnet Fractal, Opnet Bells, Opnet Litecoin, et cetera. And now the experience for all these Bitcoin forks kind of changes from this like, I have my assets here, then I have my assets on this chain. They're two different things. If I'm a user and I want to change, my dApp, let's say that there's a project called op.fun, which is building like a pump.fun for Bitcoin tokens, right? If I'm a Solana user, my dopamine meters are going to be tanking if I have to wait 10 minutes or if I catch a long block and I have to wait 40 minutes for my one buy on op.fun to go through a mainnet, I'm going to go bananas. So like I'm never going to use it again, right? And so, we've been building Opnet for close to 7-8 months now without really knowing about this Fractal idea happening. We became aware of it when we were in Bitcoin Asia back in May. And since then, it has just been super exciting for us because all of these apps that are, a little bit more like degen, user-friendly, not like so much institutional DeFi protocols. There's a lot of builders that want to do that kind of stuff on Bitcoin. And the only option for building on Bitcoin right now is to build on the layer 1 because all these L2s are EVM chains. They don't have any like compatibility between the L1 and the L2. So Opnet with Fractal kind of changes the relationship to more of like a Bitcoin is Ethereum and now Fractal is the Binance Smart Chain, where you've got, anyone who was around in the bull cycle last time, there were just everything on the L1 was forked to everything on Ethereum was forked to Binance Smart Chain, and everything ran just as hard. Like it was. It's not
also
like there was.
Binance Smart Chain was way faster, right? So and also a lot. Well, also a ton cheaper.
Oh yeah,
a ton cheaper, a ton faster, which is exactly what Fractal is doing for the Bitcoin blockchain. So we expect the same kind of reaction. What you have done for Fractal is enabled it. Basically, you now have a way to cut and paste anything that exists on Ethereum or Binance Smart Chain or Tron or whatever, and just cut and paste it and just drop it now onto your layer on top of the Fractal chain. Right?
Yeah, and I will say, when the L2 cycle kind of hit for the first time in the Ethereum world, a lot of Ethereum devs were very resistant to deploying their apps on both ETH in a different place. So you had YFI, you had Uniswap, all these things were forked into YFII and PancakeSwap. So there was a lot of misalignment between the users of the L2s and the users of the L1s and the developers of the L2s and devs of L1. And so we, straight out the gate, kind of want to get rid of that maximalist view where if you're a builder, you should obviously you're going to want to deploy your app to Bitcoin L1, of course, but why would you not just also deploy to something like Fractal or any other L2s that pop up?
If you're McDonald's, you should have a McDonald's in every city.
Exactly.
Not be like I don't want to put a McDonald's anywhere else. Just come here. I'm in Sioux City, Iowa, right? You want a McDonald's in Moscow. You want a McDonald's in Beijing. So yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, I totally agree. So
yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do remember those times where people were very hesitant to deploy on Binance Smart Chain, mostly for sort of religious reasons. I don't want to support that chain. I'm an Ethereum guy, right? That was sort of it was culturally weird, not in a country sense, but in a almost like chains or countries, right?
There was this feeling of pride. I feel of Ethereum people last time because they kind of created this whole DeFi market. And so they felt like it was fracturing liquidity in a way that they could prevent from happening. And the reality is there's all of these different lands to grow crops on. And of course, people are going to, if the land here gets overused, there's fertile land over there. Let's go, plant our corn over there. It's the same concept with these L2s. And so, even myself, I missed a lot of the Binance Smart Chain pumps, but I could have just bought the same tokens I bought on the L1. And so we want to prevent the fractioning of, if opt.fun is on Bitcoin L1, it should still be opt.fun on Fractal. It should still be opt.fun on Bell's Coin. It should still be MotoSwap on all these places as well. So it kind of, consolidates the builders into let's build everything smart contract first that's lacking in the Bitcoin world, and then we'll start forking each other's shit once it gets too, concentrated.
Yeah. Okay. So let's hit some blocking and tackling here. So Fractal suggests that there's more than one chain, right? Because it's it suggests chaos theory where that there's basically this ever infinity growing copies of things, almost like Agent Smith in the Matrix, of the main Bitcoin chain. At the moment, there's only one Fractal chain. However. Is it true? That's my understanding, is that in the future there will be numerous copies of Fractal. Is that correct?
To be honest with you, this is the part that I'm most unclear on. So we obviously we've been running our own mining pool on the testnet. We've been using the testnet since before the OpCat upgrade and post it. And the mining process for it that we've seen doesn't really have, it's just a blockchain. It's just a merge mine blockchain. It doesn't have these multiple layers to it yet. Again, this is the testnet. Opnet is in testnet also, so for people to judge the testnet we have and compare it to the main thing would be unfair. So there hasn't really been official documentation explaining exactly, I believe this is cadence mining is what the thing we're talking about is. Yeah.
Correct.
So I'm personally most unfamiliar with this part specifically. But if I were to give my interpretation of what it will look like, I think it will look like where there are multiple forks. Essentially, Fractal is Polygon Edge, right? Polygon Edge is a fork of the EVM that literally anybody can deploy with a click of a button, and now you have a new EVM that rolls up to Polygon, which rolls up to Ethereum. And so I believe Fractal to kind of be the same concept where there would probably be Fractal forks in the future that continue this merge mine concept where all of the hash rate is, staying in the same place. Still, no fractal fork is really competing with the fractal fork for hash power because they're both being mined by Bitcoin miners anyways. And so Fractal seems to be very open to people forking the Fractal chain. What I'm unclear on with this is whether the token would be the same Fractal token or a new one. It makes most sense to me that it would be a new token. But again, this is why I'm a little unclear.
Like, what's the gas chain? What's the gas token? Yeah, we haven't actually talked about tokens yet. So on Bitcoin, the gas token is Bitcoin. On Fractal Bitcoin, the gas token is Fractal Bitcoin, it's new FB token, which is not yet out yet. So don't go looking for it. Doesn't exist anywhere just yet.
Yeah.
And so if there's now like another roll up sub chain, a fractal of the Fractal chain, does that have a new FB token, or
it could be Mark Bitcoin, right? Like,
we don't know.
I don't know yet. Yeah. I think the answer is yes, but again, they might be cooking up something that allows for this thing. I just don't know.
Yeah, so the Fractal Bitcoin might also flow down to all sub fractals in that fashion. So, and if we are fans of Fractal, as you and I are at this moment, I suggest that we start calling ourselves Mandel Bros, right? After Mandelbrot, who came up with fractal theory, right?
That's funny.
So anyway, so Mandel Bros assemble.
Nice.
So now just getting a little bit more blocking and tackling. So bridging. So I like you, I've been using the Fractal beta. And I have the Unisat wallet, which is now upgraded to include Fractal as one of the chains. So before they had like the Bitcoin chain, Bitcoin testnet, and now there's Fractal testnet, and eventually there'll be Fractal mainnet. Yeah. And so right now, there is no way to bridge in to Fractal from the Bitcoin mainnet at the moment, but the documents describe something coming, which I believe will be an in-wallet experience called the elevator. And the elevator is essentially their bridge. And elevator also suggests multiple floors, right? So that also suggests that is how you will move your tokens up and down through all the subfractals and up to the main Bitcoin chain. Yeah. What do we know about that elevator bridge and how that works? Do we know much yet, or what can you tell?
So the elevator concept is kind of where I personally would say the centralization comes into, like, the pros of centralization are speaking in this type. So, I mean, everything ordinal based has some level of, or meta protocol based is going to have some level of centralization because they're not their own blockchains, right? There's no consensus network between the ordinal clients or Rune clients or BRC20 clients. There's nothing like that. They're all individual instances of just looking at the same chain, and then because they're all the same piece of software, they all should process this information the same way.
They might not. They may decide not to. They may cheat. There's nothing coordinating them. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, just in all fairness, because I fought this pretty hard in the early days, if I'm going to be totally honest, because there was a lot of misalignment between different indexers. Different BRC20 indexers said different things, different ordinal indexers said different things. And in the year and a half, almost 2 years that people have been using this meta protocol concept, it really has gotten pretty good. It's very rare that there's any misalignment between any meta protocols at this point. I actually don't even remember the last time there was. But yeah, so because I would personally describe Fractal as being a chain that's kind of made for meta protocols. Like, the whole intent of it is, hey, there's going to be a point where Bitcoin, we're already experiencing it. It's too congested. If anyone else remembers when Runes came out, gas Sats VP was like 3,000, dude. It was crazy. It was the highest it's ever been. So that's insane. That can't keep happening. And there's like a very clear ceiling for the L1 in terms of degenerate games. When it comes to DeFi, stable coins, DEX swapping, I think that the L1 is a proper place for things like that to happen. But for, Runes tokens that want to launch on a pump.fun platform or OP20 tokens that want to launch, like OpFun, the mainnet is just going, let's say Ansem, right, makes an OpFun token and puts it on the L1. Dude, the chain's going to be unusable for 2 days. Like, it's going to be unreal.
We've already seen it happen a bunch of times. So yes,
that's what happened with the Pups token. Yeah, the Pups token pumped to $150 on Solana, but the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, couldn't keep up with that, so it only pumped to $70, and there was this misalignment between the two chains, even though it's the same asset. The Fractal elevator is very, very cool because they're really hammering on the sense that Unisat already runs a majority of the infrastructure for BRC20 tokens. Like they have a really, really tight API that you can pay for. They get like 2 billion requests per month on it. It's pretty insane, and it works very well. It's kind of like their hidden thing. I feel like most people don't even know they run the most used API in the entire ecosystem. It's really
I
good.
did not know that. Actually, that's news to me as well. But of course, that makes sense. They put all this effort into indexing. Why not sell access to it? Yeah, of course. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, they've been doing it for a while, and it's really nice. And so because they already do that, essentially Unisat, runs a majority of the consensus of the BRC20 network specifically. So even more so, because we're talking about Fractal here, their own blockchain. They really, you can run your own BRC20 indexer on Fractal. It's probably going to be easier for you to just use their API and everything works already. It's not fudding that it's centralized. Who cares?
Yeah.
So the elevator concept basically means, from what I understand, it uses a DLC, which is a discrete
what does DLC stand for?
A discrete log contract. And so this is an example of, one of the dumb smart contracts that Bitcoin already has in it through script, where if you've ever used, Liquidium or any of these lending protocols on Bitcoin,
I have.
they also use DLCs. And so essentially a DLC is like an Oracle included multisig, where there is a centralized point. It's a multisig, but one person has kind of more access than the other two in terms of what they're able to sign off on. Some of the signers have to have an Oracle that basically says, like take lending, for example. When I make a loan on Liquidium, but let's say you want to give me money so I can lend my pup. And so I put my pup into your lending pool and I have, 0.05 Bitcoin. When let's say the loan defaults and the price of the puppets goes below 0.05, there's nothing that's forcing me to sign so that I lose my JPEG to you, right? I could just disappear and never sign it. And so Liquidium, the platform, centrally comes in and you sign your remove and they sign their signature, and then the DLC clears. And so the elevator with Fractal works on the same concept where and it's especially easier because, again, all of the address types of Fractal are exactly the same on the main network. So if you have BC1 69420, then you're going to have BC1 P69420 on Fractal as well.
Right, same address.
Same address, yeah. And so if I want to bridge my BRC20 token, let's say I have 1,000 Ordi tokens, and I want to get them off of Bitcoin and into Fractal, I can, with their elevator tool, and I actually believe they're going to have 3 to 5 different ways of doing this. So I'm only really familiar with one of them, which is the DLC method, where you create a locked position of your BRC20 token that they have basically control over where it can be unlocked to. And then they just issue you the same BRC20 token on Fractal. It's 4 ticker. It's not called FBRC20. I've seen some people doing that. It's not called FRAC20. It's literally just still 4 ticker BRC20. They reserved all of the 4 tickers.
So Ordi, O-R-D-I, or whatever. Yep.
Again, this is their own indexer network.
It's
not
the
like
same token. Yeah, I see. So let me repeat back what I think I heard you say. So
there's a lot of info. Sorry.
No, it's okay, but I think it's good. This method, so Bitcoin has like sort of single serving, very specific smart contracts already built into it. One of them is DLC or DLT? DLC. This DLC smart contract enables you to lock tokens into it, and it has an oracle. And what that means is a condition which it senses whether it's met or not. So an example of that would be if I borrowed money and I use Bitcoin as my collateral. If Bitcoin dips below a certain price, my collateral is then liquidated, and this DLC is, it's a smart contract meant to liquidate a position under certain circumstances. In a bridge, it'll liquidate in a certain condition, but it'll liquidate back to me. So it's the way I get my money back out of the smart contract.
It can liquidate back to you or anyone else, because this is kind of, we call this the two-way peg problem in Bitcoin. This has been around since before ordinals. And it's kind of this concept of like, how do you wrap Bitcoin on Bitcoin and then allow for that position to be withdrawn to a different address, right? Like you using HTLCs and things like this, which is a hash time lock contract, not a discrete log contract, which is like a decentralized multi-sig that has conditions to it. DLC is completely, a centralized multi-sig. Again, it's fine. And so this concept of a DLC allows you to withdraw your position to a different address. So like, let's say I put my 1,000 ordi onto Fractal and I make a DLC with 1,000 ordi in the elevator. And then you on Fractal buy the 1,000 ordi from me and you want to go back to Bitcoin with the DLC that Fractal has, Unisat has control of. They can point it to your address, and now my original position is unlocked to you. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. So there's a little bit of flexibility there. But yeah, no, that's super cool. So, and that this is a very well tested, smart contract. So it's been in use for, a decade plus now. So we know it works. And to our knowledge, that's never been hacked. So that's very super solid, unlike everything at Ethereum. So this bridge methodology is very, very solid in comparison, I think.
Well, okay. It is a multi-sig, right? So, on Ethereum, it's a little bit different in terms of the bridging because they're multi-sigs, but they have there's no one person who has more of a control on the signing than anybody else does. So in this case, it's like you're just trusting Unisat not to get hacked, which again is a very good bet because they are the biggest player in the ordinal space. So it's pretty safe, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. So is there a token, like if you basically have this knowledge that Fractal is coming and you're bullish on it, you can't buy the FB token. Is there a token which can be bought to, if you want to try to speculate on this? We're not giving financial advice, but just what do we know about this at the moment?
Yeah, there's a handful of tokens or just assets like ordinals that are confirmed to be partners with either Unisat or are Unisat assets. The pizza token, Unisat did this big airdrop. I think it was 3 months ago now in the middle of May. Where they airdropped all of their active user wallets. So if you use the Unisat wallet and made a transfer within the past 90 days, you were eligible. And then also the Unisat points that everybody has, from buying BRC20s and runes. They did an airdrop called Pizza, which is a BRC25 ticker token. So it's PIZZA, not PIZA, like the 4-ticker one. And it was the biggest airdrop on Bitcoin to date. It was 220,000 addresses. This is maybe a little known fact. I don't know exactly what happened here, but when they deployed the pizza token, they set the mint limit to 1,000 tokens. And so they had to manually mint 210,000 mint inscriptions before they could send the airdrop out. And that cost them almost $1.5 million to do that.
Wow.
They spent $1.5 million on minting out their own token.
Just gas.
Just gas. And then they spent another $1.5 million sending it out to everyone because they sent it to 220,000 addresses. So kind of bonkers that they spent a lot of money on that. I would say it's a pretty safe bet. They have some kind of plan for pizza. There's Lorenzo just posted a tweet that said that their swap is going to be called Fractal Swap, but it's going to be changed to Pizza Swap. And
better
so
name.
Yeah, right. And so there may be, again, an NFA, but there seems to be some link between the pizza token and the pizza swap on Unisat. And then additionally to that, it is confirmed that they are going to relaunch their BRC20 swap module. So if anybody remembers, I think it was September of last year when they launched this, where you could basically, you had to buy a pass. It wasn't open for anyone. It was in beta. But if you had a Unisat pass, you could bridge your BRC20 tokens into their off-chain swap system, and you used the SATS BRC20 token as the gas for that. So they have confirmed that will be launching on Fractal as well. And so I don't know if it's the same pizza swap. I'm assuming it is, but the SATS token will be used as the gas token for that. So there is confirmation on the SATS token, and there's loose confirmation on pizza. And there's also an ordinal project called Uniworlds, which they've actually been, they've been hanging around in the Unisat universe. I don't know if it's officially Unisat or if it's
like a metaverse thing, right? We don't really know much about it, but we know it's a metaverse. We know it's a game. It's a video. Yeah. It's a gaming metaverse, social space, blah, blah, blah.
And they're official partners, and the asset exists. So those are the three bets I personally have placed on exposure to a Fractal asset pre-launch. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who grift with first Fractal pre-sale. We're going to airdrop it to Fractal. I personally don't think that shit really matters because it's going to be BRC20 regardless. Like it's not like they're launching a new meta protocol. At least it's not confirmed. They're not launching a new meta protocol called Fract20 or anything like that. They're doubling down on the BRC20 branding. And interestingly enough, they are like kind of the only player. It's like them and Domo are the only players in the space that have the rights to use the BRC20 name. And so they made a pretty distinct decision in not calling it FBRC20. I've seen some people on Twitter trying to like force that narrative. I think it's very stupid because BRC20 at the end of the day is like none of these ordinals are real. Nothing that we're playing with on Bitcoin is real. It's all off chain anyways. So Unisat is the largest infra provider for BRC20. So I consider BRC20 to be like Unisat's meta protocol, right?
It's whatever Unisat says it is.
Yeah, they have more control over it than Domo himself even does because he doesn't have the info. He didn't build the indexer. Unisat
Domo being the deployer originally of BRC20s.
Yeah. So that's
the
like
token. Yeah,
exactly. That's the little bit of like history between BRC20's relationship to Unisat is pretty much just like a Twitter anon named Domo deployed the first BRC20 token called Ordi. But there was no infrastructure built for it. So you were just trading, JSON files. And then Unisat, again, built that entire infrastructure, the wallets, the APIs, the everything, the marketplace. And that's why we know BRC20 to be what it is today. So props to them. And I consider Fractal BRC20 to just be BRC20 myself.
Yeah, I mean, Unisat did so much for BRC20 that they embraced and extended it to like, a geometrically much larger degree. And BRC20s probably wouldn't have taken off without Unisat.
0% chance. Oh my God, no way.
I sort of feel I feel that as well. And they just did such an excellent job with it. It was like night and day. So because I do remember what the universe was like pre-Unisat. Because I was messing around. I did grab some early Ordi, and it was really hard to get, right? Yeah. It was worth doing, as we now know in retrospect, because the multiples were enormous. But it was not easy, right? Mm-hmm. So
and again, respect to them also for building the infrastructure for a token that they didn't launch. Like, I mean, I assume there's some kind of link between the Sats token and Unisat. I mean, I actually don't think that's confirmed or not that they're providing for the token. But Ordi, they had nothing to do with the launch of that, and they basically built all the infrastructure that grew it to $1 billion market cap. So they're legit builders. And again, I think this fractal narrative is just it's a piece of cake. It's really tight.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. And the other thing, so I've been playing around with the beta. And I know, on mainnet, on Bitcoin mainnet, there's BRC20 4-byte and now also 5-byte. There's also 5-byte, so that's launched. On Fractal, there's BRC20 6-byte through, I think, 20-byte, right? Is it 20 or 22?
Oh, really? They did more than 6? Oh. I've only deployed 6 myself, so I didn't see that was longer.
Oh, they've done more than 6. I know that for sure. I've deployed 12. Cool. I think they have it running up to 12 now. So I've deployed some. I've already been testing that out. Nice. And what's really cool about that is the amount of gas used to deploy is orders of magnitude less than Bitcoin, right? So it's like pennies compared to $30 or $100 or whatever it was, and as well as the amount to mint is also pennies as opposed to hundreds of or thousands of dollars, right? Yeah. To mint Ordi, it cost me several $1,000s, right? So. Yeah. It was pretty insane, right? So
again, it cost Unisat themselves $1.5 million just to mint out their own airdrop token. So
it was again, because it's on the Bitcoin main chain versus Fractal. So it really is the difference between when Binance launched Binance Smart Chain compared to the crazy fees on Ethereum. It was like pennies over on Binance Smart Chain, which is why it took off and became so huge. And also why Tron is doing so well now why Tether on Tron is one of Earth's greatest hits, right?
Yeah, they minted $1 billion 2 days ago, and the fee to mint was $0. Justin Sun put that tweet out. It's insane. Yeah. So personally, I'm going to be a little biased here because, we're making Opnet, but Opnet being like a smart contract meta protocol that you can just kind of plop onto any of these, dumb blockchains or forks of Bitcoin, it really makes to me feel like the future, the next year of games on Bitcoin is going to be way infinitely times closer to the feel of Ethereum versus, I would call it season 2. Like, we're entering out of season 1 of Bitcoin games. This is Charlie Spears. I got to give credit to him. He started saying that, and I think it's perfect.
It's season 2. I love that. That's a great. That is what it feels like. It does feel like we're gearing up for a season 2.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. And I'm watching this like a hawk. I'm buying things. I'm preparing for it. I'm locked and loaded in the season 2 narrative as well. Yeah. I think that. I had a thought and I just lost it. So, but anyway. I know what I was going to say. So, one great thing about Opnet is that there is no gas token. So, right, it's free. So it's not even is it like BRC or is it like Binance Smart Chain and that it's pennies. The Opnet layer is totally free. Yes?
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same. It's the same. Again, Fractal to me is made for meta protocols. And so, Opnet on Bitcoin uses native unwrapped Bitcoin as the gas tokens. It's the same exact way that ordinals work, where, you use your Unisat wallet or your Xverse wallet, you click a button, all you need is Bitcoin, and now you can interact with this meta protocol. So it's not a layer 2 or anything like that. And so putting Opnet within Fractal as well, now Fractal Bitcoin token becomes the de facto gas token for Opnet as well. Again, that's why we're really excited, because if we made a blockchain, if Opnet was an L2, then it would be static, it wouldn't be this modular thing where it can kind of be plopped onto all these other chains. But because it's a meta protocol and we don't have a chain, we can just put it onto any of these chains. And now all of these chains can have the same games with just different fee structures, different, time limits for the blocks, different block sizes, etc. It's gonna be really cool. I think in 6 months to a year, we'll look back and be like, wow, season 1 of Bitcoin games was really rough. It was a real rough time.
Yeah, and it was the very tiny bump because compared to the very large bump to come. I agree with you. I think that's where it goes. And if I were Fractal, I would love what you guys have done with Opnet, because you have extremely enhanced their universe, and you didn't even plop down a token to steal part of it from them. Right, it's still the value still accrues to the Fractal token, right? So that is.
And sorry, I just want to point out, but Opnet has no edge to us as the creators of Opnet that allow us to build things that anybody else can't. Opnet is a fully permissionless environment for smart contracts on Bitcoin fork chains essentially, and so let's say Fractal or Unisat wanted to build something that we're building MotoSwap, which is the DEX for Opnet within Bitcoin, Fractal, Bells, etc. But it's forkable, and it's also not guaranteed to be the main used DEX because it's permissionless. It would be very unfair if we made a meta protocol for permissionless environment and then somehow we had some kind of edge going to our app that we're building on this. It's a fully fair environment. So the Fractal team could even build with Opnet on Fractal and make some really cool stuff. So we want to see
If I were them, I would build you guys directly into their elevator, right? Because as things stand right now, that is what they should do, in my opinion.
We're hoping for that
Yeah, because that would actually make moving tokens in and out of the Opnet universe. Even though Opnet is on Fractal, if you're sort of in the Fractal layer, you still have to move your tokens into the Opnet layer and back again, right? There's not. I know you guys are working on stuff, but right now there's no easy way to do that.
Yeah, so to be honest with you, we've been really focusing on the Opnet side of things and just Bitcoin Layer 1 Opnet. We've been focusing on how to bridge, BRC20s and runes into OP20 tokens. Kind of the same way that there's bridges for BRCs into runes and runes back to BRC as well. I don't think any of them have really been widely used because they're pretty much the same experience.
I've tried them all. It hasn't been great.
But doing that with a runes token and getting it, runes BRC on Bitcoin into an OP20 on Bitcoin will offer a massive new world of, you can now use these BRC20 assets in smart contracts on the layer 1. And so, we've been looking with specifically Mubi has said they're going to add support. They just announced that the other day. And then Xlink, this is maybe alpha, but they're announcing that soon as well, where they're going to have a bridge between the two. And so, yeah, we've been kind of pausing and hoping that the Fractal team will be open to adding an additional meta protocol into their elevator, because what we don't want to have happen is this like 3 different bridges launch for getting your tokens from L1 to Fractal, and that would be a nightmare. Yeah. So
no, we don't want that. We don't want that world. So, yeah, no, I mean, I'm very hopeful at the Fractal, and the Fractal people seem to be very practical. So my guess is that they will reach out to you and they will do this.
We are in contact with them. We've been
okay. So you're already talking to them.
Yeah, they've seen all the stuff we put up. Actually, so we mined a majority of, at this point, there's other people mining it, but we were the first external miners to make a mining pool on their testnet. And so we mined, like, for the first 3 or 4 days, I think we mined like 90% of the blocks, which meant we had 90% of, yeah.
Yeah, but that's all all bullshit testnet tokens, right? So it's not like
but
it's not like you guys are
Fractal
Satoshi now.
No, yeah, not at all. But the Fractal testnet faucet, they only had like 90 Fractal Bitcoin in there. It was like a pretty low amount. Again, it's a testnet, so I don't think they were going to spend thousands of dollars to mine their own token. But so we made our own faucet. On the Unisat one, you could get 0.002 Fractal Bitcoin, and we jacked our faucet up to like 0.05. And we had 100,000 Fractal Bitcoin, and we've given out over 60,000 of that so far. So
wow. How many wallets are there using the testnet right now? Do we know? It's like 200,000 or?
There's a shit ton, bro. It is insane. And from what we're seeing, it's going to be people like farming on the chance there's an airdrop. Fractal's been pretty clear that there's not going to be an airdrop. So I think it might be, again, it's free. It's a free testnet. So who cares? But I think the airdrop farmers will be a little bit wasted time. Yeah. Yeah.
It's been a lot. That much, I don't remember the exact number, but it's a big number of people who are testing, or at least wallets. We don't know if they're people, but yeah, there's an awful lot of excitement about this. So I feel like this is a freight train. That not enough people know about. I mean, there's some people. There's a small core of us that all know what this is and see what's coming. Almost like very early Bitcoin, right? Like it feels that again to me, right?
I've been checking out and doing some research on the Binance Smart Chain chart, and I think the Fractal Bitcoin chart is going to look pretty similar to that. That's my NFA, not financial advice, but my personal thesis is that like these Bitcoin forks are about to be turned into turbo mode with this smart contract kind of unification across all of them. And Fractal is going to be the leading L2. That's what I think.
Totally agree. Well, Danny, thank you so much for jumping on. This was sort of a off-the-cuff Fractacular, but you more than admirably fulfilled the request of giving us all the specifics and explaining things in a very clear, very interesting way. Where can people find you and more about your projects online?
Yeah, so if you want to learn about Opnet, just go to opnet.org, and we have all the documentations there, whether you're a user or you're a developer. You can get started pretty much, within 10, 15 minutes of just scrolling through the site. We have a Telegram group and a Discord group as well as a Twitter. It's all Opnet BTC is all the handles for that. I'm Danny Plainview, BC1 Plainview on Twitter. Come check out the MotoSwap Telegram if you're excited about this stuff. That's kind of the most active place where the majority of people are. We're really looking forward to the Fractal mainnet and whatever they've got cooking. I feel like there's more surprises to come still. So very excited. Thanks for having me on. This was a really fun time.
Yeah, dude, my pleasure. And if you want to learn more about Fractal Bitcoin, it's just fractalbitcoin.io, and I'll put the link in the show notes. And that's all the time we have. My name is Mark Jeffrey. This has been Hash Rate. We'll see you all next time.
Peace out.